Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Parul. I'm Parul Agarwal. I'm from the UN Habitat's India office. I take this opportunity to welcome you to our monthly webinar series. Today, we are inaugurating this series as part of bringing together knowledge partners, practitioners, and technical experts, and have launched this platform to connect them on topics of urbanization and sustainable urbanization with you. We recognize the role of city administrators in championing city visions, and so this webinar series is a platform to bring together city administrations and urban local bodies and urban practitioners to take actions and innovations for sustainable urbanization. Today's topic is on waste-wise cities and innovative technologies. As you can see, as you well know, that the cities in India face have a big challenge around waste management systems, which are inadequately managed. And for cities to cope with this massive amount of waste that is produced every day is a growing challenge. Only a fraction of waste in our cities is reused or recycled, and large amount of it ends up in landfills and water bodies. So we wanted to take this opportunity to learn about how cities are looking at environmental systems and urban ecology with focus on waste. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Mangesh Dige, who is an environmental officer with the Pune Municipal Corporation. And he has worked very actively in preparing environmental status reports for the city of Pune since last 10 years. He is also responsible for the pollution monitoring of the city from day to day, and also responsible for coordinating this between different departments within the municipal corporation, and to relate their projects towards sustainable development of the city. He is currently also working on the Sustainable Development Goals for Pune City, and is the secretary to the Biodiversity Management Committee of Pune. So I before I request Mr. Dige to share his ideas on this topic, I want to tell you that we have 3 speakers lined up, followed by a short poll that we would like all the participants to participate in, and then we'll have about 30 minutes for the Q&A. Please send your questions and any comments in the chat window. We will keep track of it. So I request Mr. Mangesh Dige to share his presentation with us.
Hello, this is Mangesh Dige from Pune Municipal Corporation. I hope I'm audible, Parul.
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Parul, for introducing me. I'll begin my presentation. This is, I hope I'm sharing my slide on the screen. Is it visible? So I hope my screen is visible on
yes, it is.
Your laptops or
Mr. Dige, please continue.
Yeah. This is Pune city. I'll share a brief profile of the city. It's 8th largest city in India and 2nd largest city in the state of Maharashtra, with a population of 4 million and an area of 331 square kilometers. So with the population of 4 million, we have around 1 million households. Next slide. Okay, these are the sources of solid waste generation in Pune city. As you can see, most of the solid waste generated is 40% from the households. So it's more of a residential city, and there are commercials also, and followed by hotels and restaurants. So we don't have much of industrial waste coming into the municipal solid waste. So tackling household and the commercial waste is a challenge for Pune city. When we look at the total solid waste generated in the city, it's to the tune of 2,000 to 2,200 metric tons. Out of this generated waste, Pune city has got a policy of in situ composting, where we are encouraging households and the societies to do composting for the wet waste which they are producing. So many big societies and some of the individual houses have taken up this scheme, and they're composting around 100 to 150 metric tons per day. And apart from that, we have a good model of Swachh, where it's a ragpicker association named Swachh, and around 3,000 people are working. These people collect the waste from the household, from the doorstep. So as they collect the waste from the doorstep, out of the dry waste, whatever could be recycled, they take that material out, and that's to the tune of around 100 to 150 metric tons per day. So the remaining waste, which comes to the municipal corporation, is around 1,800 metric tons. Out of this waste, the wet waste component is around 800 metric tons, that is 50%. And dry waste is again 800 metric ton, and mixed waste is around 400 metric ton. So this is the slide which I wanted to share specifically on this webinar. We have this informal sector, that is the Ragpicker Association, and Pune city has recognized this association, and we have an MOU with this association called Swachh, where 3,200 waste pickers are registered, and they're authorized by the municipal corporation to collect waste from the door-to-door households. So as of now, from past around 7 to 8 years, this model has been working, and out of 1 million households, we are able to cover 52% of households through these people. And the role of PMC is to provide infrastructure like buckets, the bins, the cycle carts, provide insurance and identity to these people. And with the household societies, we have an MOU where these people collect a fee of around 20 to 30 rupees per month. So this is a regular income for Swachh employees, and as you can see that this is quite a sustainable model, where these people are earning sustained livelihoods, and with the recycled material they earn an additional income. So in the morning time, within 2 to 3 hours, they do earn a good amount of money, and the remaining of the day they can look out for some other employment opportunities. So this is one association where we didn't need much of technology, but just giving a recognition to the association was a big step towards reducing the burden on the municipal corporation. As you can see, the municipal corporation system is about providing transport facilities for the waste, which is picked up from the society gate and then taken to various different treatment facilities. Here we can see in the Pune Municipal Corporation map, many green dots, yellow dots and blue dots are shown. The green dots are the ones which are biomethanization plant, and yellow ones are where we have vermicomposting plants, the big ones. Then the blue color dots are the transfer station. A transfer station is a place where the smaller size vehicles when they collect waste from the housing society, they come to transfer station. There's a ramp, and from the smaller vehicle, the waste is transferred to the bigger vehicles, which are known as bulk refuse carriers. So the overall burden on transportation is reduced to a great extent by providing these transfer stations. You can see some of the photographs here of the biomethanization plant. We started this kind of plant around 2007, and each plant is having a capacity of 5 metric ton per day. What this plant does is that we have a special truck which goes around and collects wet waste from hotels, and the wet waste from the hotels is brought to these plants. It is shredded and digested in the digesters, and the biogas produced through these biogas plants is used for producing electricity to lit up the surrounding street lights. So we started with one plant in 2007, and then we expanded more as the demand increased. And as of today, we have around 25 such plants operational at various locations within the city. So this has been a great help for managing the solid waste, and specifically the wet waste from the hotels, which causes a lot of smell nuisance in the city. The processing of waste is depending on the kind of waste which is being taken. So here we have vermicompost systems, we have mechanical composting systems, we have biomethanization plant, we have waste to energy plants at different locations and at different sizes. And when we look at these various projects, you can see basically biomethanization plants. There are mechanical composting plants which are 5 in number. These are run by municipal corporation. But apart from municipal corporation, there are housing societies which are also adopting to this mechanical composting. Then there are thermal composting, mechanical separation units, and 2 RDF units. The garden waste is treated differently, where within the gardens we have these shredders, where the garden waste is collected and shredded into small pieces, and that is used for composting. For biomedical waste of the city is producing around 5 to 6 metric tons per day of biomedical waste, and this is collected through a separate vehicle which goes around to different hospitals. We have a tie with all the hospitals, and this is treated with incineration. That is one centralized plant in Pune city. For the C&D waste, we have recently deployed a policy and identified location where the construction and demolition waste can be dumped in an abandoned quarry on the outskirts of the city. Then we had a scientific landfill which is around 20 kilometers away from the city, and this scientific landfill, we call it scientific now, but earlier it used to be just the city dump, and in 2010 a whole lot of dumping happened, and after that we stopped the dumping and we were only processing the waste over there. And as of today, we have done capping over there using HDPE membrane, and we are thinking of collecting the biogas from this plant. You can see the biomedical waste around 5 to 6 metric ton. It is collected in different kind of bag: the yellow bag for the biomedical waste, red bag for the autoclave and microwave instruments, and the white bag for the shop objects and the glass pieces. This is the city dump, the photograph of city dump. As you can see, it was lined up with the HDPE membrane, and now we have done plantation on this, and now it's no more a city dump. It's a beautiful site, and this photograph of the plantation is from past 1 year, and now they have grown much bigger in size. So the effort of municipal corporation is not only the technology, but it's technology, society, people, organization, and so therefore Swachh model is one where it has been very helpful for the city. Then we had zero garbage ward system, where one of the wards of Pune city was declared as zero garbage, and we put in a lot of effort. Even we got an ISO certification for that, and looking at that model, we have taken up to more wards for making it zero garbage. Of course, as a municipal corporation, we also have a citizen interface, an app on the mobile, as well as a website-based place where people can put in complaint about waste or if there's some open burning happening or waste is not collected from a certain area. All our vehicles which transport the waste are fitted with a GPS system, so we do online tracking of all these vehicles and how they are collecting the waste from different locations. We have been successful in eliminating the waste bins. Waste bins means the places, a common area where people used to dump waste. So we have eradicated the bins to a large extent. Now we are almost 5% of the city has got few bins here and there. But the idea is that we wanted to make city bin free and at the same time strengthen our transportation system of waste so that we can reach each and every household and society and collect the waste from their society premises. So the learning for Pune Municipal Corporation has been that that to share with learning, the city has to make a multi-dimensional approach, not just one simple technology of waste to energy, but it's biomineralization, it's mechanical separation, it's composting, and even giving incentives to the households for doing composting. And plus biomineralization plants at different locations. So we have to have a multi-dimensional approach for the city's waste. So that in case one plant fails at some place, we can always fall back on the other ones. So citizens as a government and organization like Swachh need to come together to mutually solve the problem. Introduce some of the schemes like Zero Garbage Award, and so basically the idea is to have a decentralized mode of waste management in the city. And of course, our municipal commissioner and a whole lot of staff, we take regular review and keep up the ethos of the municipal solid waste staff. And we have a dedicated department called solid waste management, and a good amount of people are working in this department to tackle the day-to-day problems. So this is what I wanted to share, Parul. Thank you for giving me time and thank you for listening to me.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dighe. I really appreciate your presentation. So we have our second speaker today is Mr. Rahul Datar. He's an independent environment, health and sustainability specialist. And he has specialization in environmental safeguard and impact assessments. In his work, he has focused on development, implementation, and auditing of environmental and social safeguards, social policy frameworks for infrastructure development and financing institutions. And so I give the floor to Mr. Datar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. So, am I audible, Parul?
Yes, you are.
Right. And okay, show my screen. That's right. So, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Right. Good afternoon to all of you. Yeah, so good afternoon to all of you. I think most of the important points have been already discussed and presented by my colleague, Mr. Dighe, as an example of how PMC is carrying out these waste management and related activities. So I will not repeat those points for the shortage of time. I will just quickly take you through some of the additional points that I would like to share with all of you. Again, this first slide just talks about the scale of the problem in India, for instance. So you can clearly see that we have a huge problem at hand. 62 million tons of MSW per year we generate. And out of that, only 11.9 is being treated at the moment. The rest of it, 31 million tons, is being landfilled in the various areas. And I'm just talking about the urban and the cities and the towns. So there's a huge potential, and the corporations like PMC, Indore, Kochi, and so on, and also Mumbai, have been trying to do a lot of improvement in terms of how technology, institutional support, community support can be used, and we can address this problem more effectively. So just wanted to take you through some points here. Now, it's an interesting visual here, which sort of gives you a snapshot on how typically urban local bodies have been falling into the trap of low levels of the service. So starting from there, where you have inappropriate standards, insufficient finance, institutional deficiency, that translates to lower use of the service, which means that non-payment of the taxes related to waste management, poor willingness to pay, lower tax collection, leading to low revenue level, which is again having inadequate funding from the government, inadequate systems of the financing. And this goes on and on. So somewhere we have to break through out of this vicious cycle. And I think the corporations like PMC and the others have been showing the way of how you can decentralize and use technology in a better way. So it's not again about the technology. The technology is all there. The equipment is there, the technology is there, but how do you decide what technologies to use, what technology mix to use, and how do you deploy those in a more effective manner such that it is doable, it is workable in a PPP model, as well as there's community participation there. So just to take you through some of the points here, most of us are aware that the policy and the regulation is largely in place. We have the solid waste management rules 2016 and so many other waste streams as well. But often we focus only on compartmentalized approaches and not an integrated approach. So if you are considering electronic waste, C&D waste, solid waste, plastic waste, now we have a plastic waste management rules as well, which is also demanding a separate mechanism for extended producer responsibility and a addressal of the problem in terms of collection and take back of the plastic waste, which is generated in the cities. So all this needs to be effectively addressed, and the regulation may need to be taken up down to to a level where it can be more effectively implemented. For instance, I have mentioned that later on in the third point, that we also need to include solid waste management infrastructure as part of every building structure, maybe residential, commercial. I mean, at least we can do that for the new ones, because most of the times, for lack of space, for lack of area available to have interim storage of waste or manage the segregation, no effort is being done at source, and everything is expected to be done by the ULBs, which often is not possible. So it is important that we factor this. The National Building Code 2016 does address all these problems, and it does have a coverage on the solid waste management infrastructure. But again, it's a guideline, it's not really mandated in most of the cities. So we need to ensure that for building new buildings plans, when they are approved, solid waste management infrastructure needs to be also addressed in the planning and the layout. So that's extremely important. From the ULB's point of view, the collection, the transportation for disposal takes up most of the budgets of most of the conventional corporations, unless you have taken additional steps to basically bring in the technology focus and the decentralized approach, and on in a structured, planned way. So that is extremely important. As Mr. Dighe also pointed out, in most of the cities of the country, we have rag pickers, we have an informal sector which has been silently doing its work over the years. But again, it is done in a way such that their welfare, their occupational health and safety hazards, their insurance issues have not been taken care of, and there is no formal training for them where their services can be brought in as mainstream, and along with the corporations, it can work together. So these kind of opportunities are there. Many of the programs, like the one which is being done in Mumbai, even the one which is which was just explained in Pune, the Swachh. So there, these aspects have also been covered and addressed effectively. Wages, the minimum wages have also been addressed there. So these are the important aspects. Then, as already discussed earlier, the technologies on waste reuse, recycle, waste to energy, I mean, you will find a lot of different approaches to technologies, different configurations, materials, equipments. So somewhere there needs to be a compendium where all this is compiled together. Somebody assesses it and approves it for use ahead, so that the societies and the commercial complexes can actually adopt these technologies based on their space and their scale, affordability and their need, of course. So that's extremely important to ensure that norms and standards are established to take this forward. For instance, if you're doing the composting, what sort of compost standards are you looking at? What are the NPK values? Do you need any additives to be done? How do you market that product? How do you streamline it together? These are the things which need to be addressed, because if they're not done, then on a larger scale, you will not find composting being taken up. As far as community awareness and education goes, we have been talking about it all the time. There's more focus nowadays with schools, colleges, and the academia and the research staff being involved in this process, which is actually being very useful, because they are driving the entire communication, and which is a good thing. So we need to do more of it now. Again, as we discussed earlier, we need a blended approach of decentralized and centralized approaches. In the past, the focus typically has been, as I said, on collection, transportation, and the disposal. And so the focus was more on the vehicles, on the staffing, and how do you pick up waste, and all of that. Now we need to also look at the other elements of the system in terms of an integrated solid waste management approach. And how do you enhance the value supply chain? For the dry waste recyclables, what needs to be composted, what needs to be, you can use biomethanation. There is also an excellent example in Pune itself, which is again on bio-CNG. One is the plant which Mr. Dighe talked about. Then there is another one in Pirangut as well, which is converting agro waste in a very efficient manner to bio-CNG. And they have a dispensing unit as well, where vehicles can be directly filled with the fuel. So we need more of these kind of approaches, and need to connect it with other problems. For instance, we have a bigger problem of agro residues and waste being burnt in the farmlands, causing air pollution and so on. If we can introduce such technologies there, as we address the municipal solid waste, the agro waste and the other waste can also be taken in, and they can be converted to bio-CNG, which will also save a lot of impacts on the emissions. Lastly, there have been mixed approaches on how do you manage the entire finances. PPP models have been tried out. There have been a lot of loopholes. We don't have the time to discuss all of that now. But some things have worked. Most of the things have not worked. Largely, the problem has been with waste segregation and management at source. There have been other countries where the solid waste tax has been imposed through the property taxes or electricity bills, and the efficiency in terms of the recoveries have been fairly good. So these things can be done. As far as solid waste management technology and equipment are concerned, we can come up with financial rebates and subsidies where it can be promoted to be taken up by the community more effectively. So these are, I would say, some of the key points that we need to focus along with the other aspects which we already discussed in the in the previous presentation. Thank you so much from my side. Over to you, Parul.
Yeah, thank you, Rahul, for those very insightful case studies, examples on how technology can be used, especially on this bio-CNG work that you mentioned and that City of Pune has already implemented. I now want to bring in Ms. Nelly Camp, who is an Associate Officer for Waste Management in the Urban Basic Services branch of UN Habitat in Nairobi. She's also the focal point for UN Habitat's Waste Wise Cities campaign, which was launched last year at the World Habitat Day. Before joining UN Habitat, Nelly was working as a consulting engineer in Vienna, Austria, and supporting the public and private sectors on waste management topics. So we really look forward to her, her presentation to bring in that international perspective from which we can learn here in India. So over to you, Nelly.
Thank you for the very kind introduction, and hello to everyone. I'm gonna present really quickly the Waste by Cities campaign, talk about World Habitat Day, and also about some innovation and innovative technologies which can be part in Waste by Cities. So as already mentioned, Waste by Cities campaign was launched last year by our ED, by our executive director, with a call to action to everyone to tackle solid waste management. As part of the campaign, we've been working or developing key principles of sustainable waste management that you can see here. I'm not going to go into all of them, but for us, they're just very important points that especially municipal and city governments have to look at if they want to improve their waste management systems. This goes from just monitoring and gathering data on waste and to understand the waste flows, over improving collection and disposal, towards the so-called 5 Rs, which we define as rethink, refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle. And of course, also to work with a lot of different stakeholders and also establish better working conditions. There you go. So the objective of Waste by Cities campaign is enhanced waste management and resource efficiency in the world's cities. To reach this, we want to decrease generation of waste, improve municipal solid waste collection and controlled management, increase recycling of suitable materials, and enhance management of hazardous waste in the world's cities. So this is kind of the objective that the campaign has, and we think that the 4 pillars that all these accomplishments are standing on, or how we can reach them, is by improving data for decision making, strengthening knowledge, technical capacity, and governance for waste management, raising global awareness for suitable resource and waste management, and increasing global investments for and commitments to waste management improvements. For us, those are just the 4 key areas that at the moment are lacking behind and that need to, if boosted, will have a great impact on waste management. So out of these, what I just showed you, out of our objectives and how to reach them, we defined 4 key action areas, which are knowledge and good practices sharing, waste data and monitoring, advocacy and education, and project finance and bankability support. In each of these, we have agreed on certain activities, which again, I'm not going to go into. You're more than welcome to have a look at them later. However, it's part of it is, for example, a bi-monthly newsletter as part of the knowledge and good practices sharing, which we are sharing. So everyone who's interested in receiving newsletters can just contact us. You will see our contact email in the end of this presentation, and are more than welcome to join. Other activities include the development of the so-called Waste by Cities Toolkit, which is a toolkit that is analyzing the waste management in a city, for example, and identifying intervention areas, which then can be addressed in implementing projects. To give you an example for that one, because I thought it's boring to just give you all those technical ideas, we did for the Waste by Cities Toolkit, we did a pilot study here in Nairobi in Kenya. And as you can see, if you move from the left to the right, you have waste generation. Then you can see here you have different branches of collection. You have the Nairobi City County, which is collecting, as well as collection companies. But you also have youth groups and community-based organizations that are engaged in waste collection. And most of the waste they collect goes to the designated disposal site, which is the so-called Dandara dump site. We were also able to determine how much waste is going there. So it's 1,600 tons per day. And then on top of it, so this is just the disposal part, but on top you also have material recovery, which is either directly accessed through the collection companies, or there are also waste pickers active in Dandara who recover 40 tons per day. So you can see overall there is waste going to Dandara, there's waste going to these private recycling companies. So we can say that the waste overall that is collected is 74%. However, the waste that is managed in controlled facilities, which is only referring to the recycling companies, is 22% out of the total waste generated in the city. And you can see that this also leaves a whole lot of waste. And I mean, we are talking here about 774 tons per day that are not collected, which means they will end up in the streets, in the settlements, in the river, in Nairobi River, might eventually end up in the Indian Ocean, and will harm our health as well as the health of the environment. And from this simple analysis already, I mean, there's of course a lot of work behind this, but you can already see that there are 4 intervention areas which are very clearly. So the first one is of course to decrease waste generation. The second one is to improve waste collection to ensure that 100% of waste in Nairobi is being collected. The third one is to boost material recovery, because we think that 600 or like 22% of the total is not enough, especially if you consider that over 50% of the waste in Nairobi is organic material. And then of course also to improve disposal, because the state that the dump site is in at the moment is not what we would like, what is envisioned for the health of everyone. So this just gives you an example of how this toolkit can be applied. Now coming from the, and I mean, regarding the campaign, I invite, as I said, everyone who's interested in it to contact us and to join, to cities to sign up. We have some Indian cities who have already signed up, but of course there can always be more. So if there are any questions, please just reach out to us. And as I said, we are having, like, the campaign was launched last year on World Habitat Day. So for everyone who that maybe might not be know what World Habitat Day is, it's the first day of Monday each year in October, has been designated by the United Nations as World Habitat Day to reflect of the state of our cities and towns, and on the basic right of adequate shelter for all. And last year the topic was municipal solid waste management, which was the beginning of Waste Wise Cities campaign. This year we are talking about frontier technologies as innovative tool to transform waste to wealth. And just maybe for everyone like me who doesn't really know what the term frontier technologies really includes, I've just given you here some examples. So it's this what everyone talks about, the Internet of Things. We talk about big data analysis. We talk about things like 3D printing, but also sustainable polymers, artificial intelligence, or nanotechnology. And our message on this World Habitat Day is that we have already a couple of these innovative technologies, or new technologies, or technologies that are coming around, and it would be really innovative and really good for everyone if we could use those for the good of everyone, and to use it on sustainable waste management. So how should that look like? Well, first, all of these innovative technologies, of course, have to be used in a conscious manner, and they have to be applied, like the innovation aspect of them has to be applied to all parts of the waste hierarchy. So what you see here in the middle is the typical waste hierarchy: reduce, reuse, recycle, recover, and I just put rest because I was thinking there's another R missing. And innovation cannot just go to one of those 5 steps, because we need, for a functioning waste system, we need all those 5 steps. Of course, most should be reduced, a lot should be reused, there should be recycling, there should be recovering, only the small rest should go to disposal. But we still need every part of this hierarchy. And so in our perspective, innovation in the waste management means innovating all 5 of these hierarchical steps. At the same time, we don't only look at the waste hierarchy itself, which looks at the way we treat waste, but We should also look in here, I just briefly show you this idea of the integrated sustainable waste management idea, where you have physical elements of a waste management system and the governance aspects. So on the physical elements, you have public health, which is collection, you have environmental protection, which is waste treatment, and you have resource management, which are the 5 Rs. So the waste hierarchy kind of comes in for environmental protection and resource management. However, you also have the whole governance aspects of a sustainable waste management system, as inclusivity, that means all stakeholders are included, financial sustainability, you need to have a business plan, and sound institutions and proactive policies, like an institutional framework. In this regard, innovation and frontier technologies also have to encompass all these aspects of the waste management system. And we think that there are a lot of innovative solutions out there, and it will always help to look at the waste management system as a whole, and not only just at some parts of it. We made a call as part of our World Habitat Day. We made a call for innovative solutions that have the potential to transform waste to wealth. And we would like, I would just like to now quickly show you one example. I can promise there are a lot more examples. We had many, like a lot of submissions. We're still going through them. That's why, unfortunately, I cannot present to you a lot. However, we are working on it so we can get them ready for World Habitat Day, and we can then publish the good ideas that are out there. So what I want to show you is actually a project that UN Habitat is doing or part of in Lebanon, and it's about reverse vending machines. However, it's not only looking at one part. So what the idea is that you have a whole system, or like a bunch of interventions at the same time. So at one point, the municipalities involved introduced sorting at source in 3 different bins here to improve the recovery of recyclable materials. Then the second part is that they want to install reverse vending machines. I'm going to come back to that. And all of this is to recover more raw material and to increase recycling. So although I just said, like, I mean, we have to look at the whole thing. I mean, this is looking at collection, and this is also looking at waste treatment and recycling. However, it also has some aspects, of course, of the governance aspects, but there's always room for improvement. So the idea of these reverse vending machines is that you can return empty containers which contain out of metal, plastic, or glass into these machines that are located in public spaces, in spaces that are accessible to many people, where also, like, they were identified by the municipalities themselves, where they say that a lot of people are passing by there. And this way, if I return there my empty container, I can I get mobile phone credit out of it. So this is a form of transforming waste to wealth. If we have someone who is able to collect these empty containers and return them there, this is the way of gaining some mobile phone credit. At the same time, in the background, these vending machines are going to be monitored by the municipalities, and they will know how much recyclables are being collected at every one of those vending machines, and they can therefore decide if it's a good point, a good location for this vending machine, or if they need to move it again somewhere else to have more impact. So this is just, I mean, a small idea, and there, as I said, there are a lot out there, and we already had some, and we are working on getting more information for you. And I just wanted to show you this example because I think it's something maybe a little bit simple, but it can have a huge impact on waste collection and on the cleanliness of cities as well. So as I said, please contact us, join us, and we have a website, and you can also always write us for information on the Waste Waste Cities campaign or on the World Habitat Day. And thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nelly. That was a very informative presentation on learning from the experience of Lebanon and Nairobi. To all the participants who have joined us, we have a poll that you can see. So please, there are 3 questions. We request you to take the poll. and I have seen the questions that you have shared. So I would now reach out to the presenters if they can answer some of the questions that we have received, but please do fill the poll, and if you have any trouble finding the link, please send a message on the chat window so that we know if there are any issues with that. So the first question, okay, so I get we can't see the poll. Yeah, so we are going to launch the first question. So can you see that on your screens now? So please take a few seconds to fill the poll. All right, so we'll move on to the next question now. I'll leave the poll on for 30 seconds, a few more seconds. All right, so moving on to the second question of our poll. So the second question is, do you think innovative technologies are the right approaches to addressing waste management issues in your cities? We'll leave the poll on for about 45 seconds. All right, so we'll close this question and move on to the last question of this poll. Do you agree that your city allocates sufficient funding for waste management? So again, we leave it on for 45 seconds. All right, so we'll close the poll. Thank you so much. To the panelists, thank you for your time. We have a few questions from the participants that I would like to pose to you. The first question is for Mr. Dige. This is from Manshita Agarwal, who asks, how can commercial waste, like waste from markets such as Chandni Chowk, which is a big market in Delhi, how can that be handled, considering we have a lot of such markets in our core cities in India? And what could be, what from the experience in Pune, what is it that cities in India learn from this? So, Mr. Dige, please.
Yeah, about the commercial waste, it depends on the kind of waste, because if it is emerging out from the, let's say, the vegetable market, then having a biomethanization system specifically catering to the vegetable waste would be an appropriate solution. But if the commercial waste is something else like the dry waste, then depending on the nature of dry waste, the recycling units or some technology, maybe waste to energy plant also can be put up. But waste to energy plant cannot be in a decentralized way. Maybe the waste has to be transferred to a larger distance. So it totally depends on the type of waste. Because you have to identify the waste and then use an appropriate technology and transport solution to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dige. I have another question from a colleague from UN Habitat on similar lines. And this is something, if I can request Rahul to Mr. Datta to respond to. Again, in the context of Indian cities and also common to other cities in the region, from this is a colleague from Pakistan who is asking that we are struggling for an effective design for handling 30 tons per day treatment of vegetable market organic waste within a small area of land. So what are some new technologies or some solutions that that cities have used to respond to this challenge?
Right. So I think the first essential aspect before you look at the technology is also to introduce a system that will effectively do the segregation of waste, because the technology comes only after that. Now, as Mr. Dige mentioned as well, there are composting technologies depending on the size and scale. Biomethanation is also the other possibility. It is a function of how much is the organic matter in it, what is the moisture level, and what are the other elements which may be there, which can either influence or inhibit the technology process. Depending on, so if you're looking at 30 tons, per day of segregated food waste, then you will, which may be vegetable waste. Again, if you have meat waste as well along with that, then you will also need a shredder to break it down to pieces, which can then be fed into a composting unit, or it can be fed into biomethanation as well, and to convert it to CNG. So again, depends on what is the final end use and what is the mechanism of using that end product. So if you feel that the compost can be better utilized, then it can be also done through the composting technology. If CNG is generated, the CNG can be then used, the biogas can be used to fire some local canteens or some local activities where it can be used as a fuel. Then it can be like a closed loop small community mechanism. So it all depends on what area you're talking about, what kind of waste, how much of segregation is being practiced, how much is being generated, and how is the institutional structure possible there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Datar. I have a follow-up question, and this is from Dr. H.S. Gill. His question is, what is the cost of biomethane plant and what is the cost of bio-CNG pump, two of them separately, if you can shed some light on that?
Yeah. Sure. So typically, again, see, the biomethanation plant will give you around 4 to 6% of methane from the waste. So if you're talking about a 25 tons per day capacity, then you can easily generate about 4% methane from that. 8% compost in the form of a dry to slurry mix is also possible. And or if you use certain different ways of operating the technology, instead of the compost, you can also have a liquid fertilizer kind of, which is like a semi-slurry, which can also be used in the agricultural farmlands and so on. So there are different models available, and for a 30 tons per day or a 25 tons per day model with 40 to 50% of segregated waste, which is the wet waste, the cost could be in Indian rupees anywhere around 5 to 6 crores, which is about 0.8 to 0.9 billion USD. That's a very broad ballpark figure. I'm talking about including the power generation as well. So we are talking about a 2500 kilowatt per day from the methane. So if you're talking about bio CNG, then it will be around 5 to 6 crores Indian rupees, so 600,000. Otherwise, if you're only talking about the biomethanation plant and the CNG will be generated for use as a fuel, then the costs will be substantially lower. And that can be done anywhere between 20 lakhs to maybe 40 to 50 lakhs. So that would be possible.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dazar. So I see we are running out of time already, but I do have two questions that we have received. One for Mr. Devi. So in your presentation, there was a lot of focus on the innovations that City Pune has used. And one common thread in all the presenters was how do we reduce waste at source. So I would like to ask you, what is it? What was the changes? What was the stimulus that the city is providing to the different waste generators? From residential users, the people, to really to increase the uptake of these policies, these programs that the city is launching.
Yeah, I would like to share Pune City's example here, where the city is giving subsidy to the households in the form of property tax rebate. So we have a system where we give 5 to 10% subsidy to property tax for those people who are using vermicompost, rainwater harvesting, and solar water heating. So if somebody adopts more than one, he gets around 10% of subsidy. So that way, we have seen that from past around a decade's time, around 85,000 properties have taken benefit of this, and thus incentivizing people to go for vermicomposting or mechanical composting at the household level. That reduces the waste to a great extent. The second one is involving people like Swachh. So when they collect the dry and wet waste separately from the household, from the doorstep, at that time, out of the dry waste, around 50 to 20% of the waste goes into recycling. So that also reduces the burden on the municipal corporation to a great extent. Then out of the waste, the dry waste, whatever can be converted to RDF, that also is one of the good ways of reducing the burden of waste. And at the end product, the waste, whatever is the good amount of manure which is getting collected from the vermicompost, we are giving it to farmers for using in their fields. And also not only the solid waste, but also the slurry which is coming from sewage treatment plants. When this slurry is put up on for drying, all these dried up material is being taken by farmers for planning. So these are some of the ways in which we are trying to reduce the amount of waste in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Digi. My last question is for Nelly. So Nelly, can you? So this is a question that has come from Sushant and Apurva. I'm combining their questions. So the question is that how can cities link the compost that they produce with peri-urban or rural agriculture? So, because this is again something that the other speakers also talked about, agro waste. So, what are the examples from cities outside India that you can reflect on, and how are multilateral agencies and how is UN system agencies like looking at this? Are there some good examples that we can learn from? Hi Nelly, can you hear me? I think we might have some connection issues.
Okay. So the question was on the connection between agro waste and municipal waste, right? Just to be sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I think it's on the one side there are probably a lot of opportunities, especially if you talk about things like co-composting, also biogas treatment plants, which of course can use as input as well agricultural waste, which is organic, as well as the organic waste coming from municipalities and cities. However, I think in reality, those two, in my experience at least, and but there might be other examples, but I try to think of it. These two are mostly separated because they are kind of in different spheres of responsibility. So as the city is responsible, or like the municipality government is, the local government is responsible for the waste generated by its citizens. Agricultural waste is not considered as this, what we call municipal solid waste. And so often the farmers just find a way of their own, or have like a possibility of their own to get to use this in a very good way. So yeah, I think like I'm it might be, if there are some, if it might be a possibility of thinking, especially in rural areas, I would say, of thinking further and not just only thinking, of course, on city boundaries, but also thinking in terms of, okay, which is the waste, like if we just look at the material itself, what can we co-treat? What can we treat together? Also, if we look, for example, at sewage and other things like this. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, thanks, Nelly. So, yeah, I think it's difficult to really to cover all the multiple dimensions, and all the questions are so loaded. But we have sort of run out of time for this session. I really thank you all for your participation. We will continue the discussion since we have recorded this this webinar. We will be posting it on the on our website, and I encourage all the participants to keep the dialogue on and post their questions, queries, and we will continue to to look at looking for better ways to address this complex challenge. With this, thank you so much. And thanks to all the panelists for taking the time out from different time zones. Lale, Mr. Dige and Mr. Datar, really appreciate your taking the time out for us today. And to all the attendees also. Please look forward to further announcements on this. It's a monthly webinar series. So next month we will be talking about urban low emissions development strategies. So so please keep an eye out for further updates on that. I thank you all for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We can also have the questions posted to us. We'll be happy to answer.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, we will keep you. We have been getting quite a few questions. We have not been able to do justice to all of them.
You could pass them on to us, and we'll try to answer as much as possible. Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.